Hello everyone, welcome to course History of International Relations, Chapter 4, World Politics in the Interwar Years, 1919-1939. Let's start with learning objectives. At the end of this chapter, you will be able to explain the main reasons behind the rise and the fall of the League of Nations. You can discuss the Great Depression of 1929 and its impact on world politics. You can assess the determining factors behind the rise of revisionist powers, namely Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, Imperial Japan, and the Soviet Union in the interwar international system. And finally, you will be able to explain the causes and effects of the Spanish Civil War. Chapter starts with an introduction and then discusses the rise and fall of the League of Nations, and the chapter considers the Great Depression and its impact on world politics. It also examines the rise of revisionist powers in the international system. Finally, the chapter deals with the Spanish Civil War. So, as for the rise of the fall of the League of Nations, of course, Paris Peace Conference was the key development at the end of the First World War, which convened between January and June 1919 in order to design the post-war international system, international order. At the conference, four countries acted as the principal actors, which are called the Big Four: United States of America, Britain, France, and Italy. So these countries, the leaders of these countries, made the key decisions regarding the peace treaties signed with the defeated countries. Defeated countries were not invited to the conference, including Germany and Soviet Union. Of course, Soviet Union was not a defeated country, but still, after the Bolshevik Revolution, it was not invited to the Paris Peace Conference. So this was considered as one of the main weaknesses of the Paris Peace Conference. And also there are some important topics, such as the establishment of the League of Nations, war reparations, overseas possessions of defeated countries, and territorial issues in Europe. League of Nations was established at the end of the conference, so it was an idea supported by the US President Woodrow Wilson. So he sought to create a permanent international organization in order to protect international peace and security. The League had 44 founding members, but the number of its members increased into 63 by 1939. The League had three principal organs: the Assembly, the Council, and the Permanent Secretariat. I should remind you that although US President Woodrow Wilson was the key supporter of the League, United States never joined the League of Nations because the US Senate did not ratify the Treaty of Versailles with Germany. And also at the conference, victorious powers signed peace treaties with defeated countries. The Treaty of Versailles was signed with Germany, the Treaty of Saint-Germain signed with Austria, the Treaty of Neuilly signed with Bulgaria, the Treaty of Trianon signed with Hungary, and the Treaty of Sèvres with the Ottoman Empire. Of course, the last treaty, the Treaty of Sèvres, was not implemented. It was replaced by the Lausanne Treaty. The Treaty of Versailles, particularly in Germany, was considered as a dictated peace. So it was imposed by the victorious powers, and it brought some sort of constraints in terms of military, finance, and politics on defeated countries. So the weaknesses of the treaties were considered as the main causes of the Second World War. As for the implementation of the peace during the 1920s, there were some key developments. The first one is the establishment of the anti-revisionist bloc by France with Eastern European countries, which is called the Little Entente. France also signed a kind of bilateral agreements with these small Eastern European countries. Another issue was war reparation, because Germany failed to pay its war reparation payments, and then France and Belgium, because of this reason, invaded the Ruhr region of Germany in 1923. This was the first international conflict or crisis in Europe. And in order to solve this debt problem in Europe, the United States sponsored Dave's Plan in 1924. Another significant development was the signing of the Locarno Pact, which was a kind of series of treaties between France, Germany, and Britain in order to create a collective security over Western Europe. And another important development was the disarmament among the nations. So, for instance, Washington Naval Conference and Disarmament Conference in the 20s and 30s were held in order to decrease the state expenditure on arms. And finally, Briand-Kellogg Pact, which was an international agreement first signed with France and between France and United States, and then other nations joined in the pact, was a key development. This was the first international treaty which renounced the use of war, the use of force as a means of foreign policy. This pact prohibited the use of force, the war, in international politics. So this is the key aspect of the Briand-Kellogg Pact. Of course, world economic depression crisis in 1929 was a very significant development which had important impact on world politics, because there was significant drop in global industrial production and trade. Stock market crash in United States was the key reason behind the world depression in 1929. It spread to Europe and the rest of the world. For instance, US export fell by 50%, trade fell by 60%. Of course, European trade dropped by more than 65%. There were high employment rates in US and Europe, so the crisis was had significant results, economic results, and due to the world economic crisis, main countries decided to end the gold standard, and economic liberalism lost its influence, and protectionism and the command economy gained popularity due to the economic depression. And of course, the Great Depression provided some sort of fertile ground for the rise of extremist ideologies such as Nazism, Fascism, and Stalinism in world politics. And in the interwar years, there were different foreign policy strategies. Revisionism, irredentism, bandwagoning, appeasement, and isolationism are the key foreign policy strategies or types of foreign policies in the interwar years. For instance, revisionism is a kind of desire to alter the international status quo. For instance, Germany, Italy, Japan, and some other countries became revisionist powers in order to change the international order created by the Paris Peace Conference. Irredentism is a kind of a claim on the territory of other nations. So there were some irredentist developments or policies, such as the invasion of the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia by the German Nazi Germany based on the ethnic Germans is an example of irredentism. Another key strategy was bandwagoning, which is defined as a policy to side with the rising revisionist power. Hungary's alliance with Germany is a telling example of bandwagoning in the interwar years. Appeasement also one of the key foreign policy strategies, which is defined as a policy of buying off a potential aggressor through compromise. The French and British policy towards Nazi Germany in Munich Conference is an example in point. And of course, the final foreign policy strategy was isolationism, which was the policy of United States in the interwar years. As for the rise of the revisionist powers in the international system, there were four key revisionist powers, great powers. The first one is the Nazi Germany, the second one is the Fascist Italy, and then Imperial Japan and the Soviet Union. The Nazi Party came to power in 1932 after the burning of the Reichstag. The Nazi Party, Hitler, created an authoritarian regime, And then he made some sort of revisionist changes in international politics, in Germany's foreign policy. For instance, Germany withdrew from League of Nations in 1933, and then remilitarized Rhineland, which was prohibited by the Treaty of Versailles, and also remilitarize the army, increase the army, and then incorporated Austria into Germany. And of course, in the Munich Agreement, the Nazi Germany invaded the Sudetenland, part of Czechoslovakia. As for Fascist Italy, Mussolini came to power in 1922. As for its revisionist policies, the invasion of Abyssinia in 1936 was a very important example. After that, the League of Nations, for instance, in this crisis, failed to prevent the Italian aggression, and after that, Italy withdrew from the League of Nations, and Italy also bandwagon with Germany by creating the Axis bloc. Another revisionist power was Imperial Japan. A military government was created in 1931. The invasion of Manchuria is an important development. At the end, Japan also withdrew from the League of Nations. As for Soviet Union, the Great Purge of Stalin in 1930s was a key development. Stalin tried to get rid of its political rivals within the Soviet state. And another key development in terms of the international politics was the Soviet-Nazi Non-Aggression Pact in 1939, in which Germany and Soviet Union decided to divide Poland and invite Poland. The invasion of Poland by the Germany will be the reason for the Second World War in 1939. The last topic is the Spanish Civil War. The Spanish Civil War, of course, was a result of a high political and social polarization in Spain. So internal dynamics, internal factors played key role in the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War. It was a civil war between the nationalist, ultra-fascist groups and Republicans between 1939 and 1936 and 1939. The war resulted in 200,000 war deaths and 300,000 wounded people. Germany, Italy, volunteers from Portugal, France supported the nationalists. So in this war, Hitler aimed to divert British and French attention from Central Europe and Central and Eastern Europe, and also he tried to create an image of anti-Bolshevik war. Soviet Union was the only nation giving outright support to the Republicans. There were limited French support to the Republicans. So the Spanish War at the end turned into a proxy war between the Axis powers and the Soviet Union. It ended in the nationalist victory, and General Franco became the dictator of France until 1975. The Spanish Civil War is considered as a preview of the Second World War, or it is called as a Little World War because of its proxy war nature. It was a kind of a great struggle between grand ideologies, namely fascism and communism. So in this chapter, we first discussed the rise and fall of the League of Nations. We then discussed the Great Depression and its impact on world politics. Then we talked about the rise of revisionist powers in the international system. Finally, we discussed the Spanish Civil War. Thank you very much.